All right, well, good morning, and thank you for joining our quarterly public safety update. This is an occasion where we just provide a high-level overview of what's happening in the city in terms of crime, as well as going into some of the strategies that we're working on as a city to make sure that we get those numbers going in the right direction, and then also make sure we're sharing what else is going on related to our police department. So today's agenda, of course, we'll have some things from myself and Chief Ruszkowski, but the big part about today's meeting is going through all of the data that we have and to show what's been happening over the last 3 months. And then, as I said, give some updates on the strategies and programs as well as upcoming events. So, first and foremost, that we've been working on implementing a real-time crime center. And the goal is to have that up and running by the end of the year. And so we are on track for that to go live. It's kind of two pieces. There's a physical room that has analysts and the screens and things to monitor the different technology information that's coming into the center. But it's also a cloud-based system that offers the ability for businesses and others to share their data with the police in the way that the way that they choose. There's choices for our partners on how data is shared, and then of course we know this is going to bring effectiveness and efficiency to our department. But we know there are concerns whenever we start talking about these types of technology deployments. And so we've been working on data policies, and we had a public meeting a week or so ago to get feedback from the community about the draft policies, and we hope to have those in place either later this month or next month to make sure that we're using these technologies responsibly and in accordance to how the community sees as appropriate. And with that, I'll turn it over to...
And the fancy QR code, we definitely got to do that. So if you have the printout, please, if you guys could post that, that'd be much appreciated for people to get feedback on those policies.
That's true. We would like to encourage more feedback. You never know sometimes when you receive, the levels of feedback, what that means, but in some ways it means that there aren't a lot of people at the doors saying, we think there need to be all these drastic changes. So I think it means that we're on the right path, but we do want to make sure that we get it right and that we get as much feedback as possible. With that, Chief?
With that, we'll lead into our recruitment and hiring process. Obviously, we'd like to first start off with our prospect days. It's our expedited hiring process, getting applicants to go through a day where they get through 70% of our hiring process in one day. We've held 3 so far, June 24th, July 16th, and August 27th. Our next scheduled one, it will not be until next February of 2023. Out of those 3, we averaged about 30 applicants, with about a third continuing on in the process. Coming from that, we are now hosting our own police academy starting October 31st, which will have 17 of our own South Bend police recruits going through that academy. And that was a big success coming from prospect days, which also gives our recruits a chance to remain at home and attend the academy at the same time. As we look into some others, currently right now, as this date, we have currently hired 46 officers, as compared to in 2018 or 18, as compared to 18 in 2021. And this is, I feel, a success from prospect days, a big success from the prospect days. We've had 26 departures, whether it be retired or resigned. And when you look at our peak numbers, back in 2019, we peaked at 243. Currently, we are at 222, and we have 1 coming on board next week that just has to go back to the academy for 1 session, and that person will be on board next week.
And we do have some people still in FTO right now, and on top of what Chief Critt just said, We still have people at the Northern Indiana Law Enforcement Academy and down in Plainfield, the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. So we'll have 3 of them academies going at once, reiterating that we are hosting our own here come Halloween.
And when it comes to diversity, from May to October, we are trending upwards, and that's the direction we like to see. Obviously, we have just a point when it comes to females, almost a percentage when it comes to African American males, and just over a percent when it comes to Hispanics. So those are the numbers we like to see trending upwards.
Chief Tim.
Now we'll go into the data, and you'll see the next slide is a gun violence snapshot. If you look at the numbers there, in 2022 we've had 735 gun violence incidents, as opposed to 904 gun violence incidents in 2021. We've had 103 victims year to date in 2022, as opposed to 99 in 21. And we've recovered 396 firearms in 2022, as opposed to 469 in 21. If you look at the trend line, that would show that gun violence incidents are down, the number of shooting victims is slightly up, and the amount of guns recovered is down on the trend line. Go to the next slide. This is the breakdown of data and some takeaways here. The first takeaway is, like explained, that we've had fewer gun violence incidents than this time last year. However, 4 more shooting victims. And then if you see the third, it's non-fatal and group member involved shootings are the highest proportion of shootings over this period. Next to that, you'll see there's historic data that shows fatal, non-fatal victims, and then group violence victims. Also, if you look at the graph since 2018, it'll show you the proportion of fatal versus non-fatal, which district, and then also the proportion and location since 2018 on the lower right graph. Next, we're going to go into death investigations, an update on death investigations. So on October 15th of 2021, South Bend PD took over all suspicious death and homicide investigations within the city limits from the St. Joseph County Metro Homicide Unit. If you look at the data, in 2021, after taking over, we had 4 homicide investigations. In 2022, we had 20 homicide investigations for a total since October 15th of 24. In 2021, 3 of those cases were charged. 10 of the 2022 cases were charged for a total of 13 charged cases. In 21, there was 1 justified, 4 in 2022 justified for a total of 5. And open, there's 0 open from 21, 6 open from 22 for a total of 6 open. If you go down to the next chart, it will show suspicious deaths. In 2021, there was 1 investigation, 6 in 2022 for a total of 7. Of those, 6 are resolved and 1 is open. And then if you go to total death investigations, that breaks down the number of 5 in 2021, 26 in 2022 for a total of 31. With a clearance rate of death investigations is 77% of those cases have been cleared.
The thing notable here is, you may notice if you look at our transparency hub, you'll see 19 fatal victims on our transparency hub. You'll see 20 homicide investigations on here. So before you ask the question, we actually investigated an officer-involved shooting in Mishawaka. That we included that investigation in ours, although it's not a fatality in our city. The prosecutor did rule that justifiable, but that is still an investigation that we did, albeit not in our city. So I just wanted to, I know that had come up because I noticed it myself this morning. So I'm sure I saw Mark nodding his head, so I know he had that probably written down as a question. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the Flock license plate reader. Again, I just want to go back. We used to have, we still do actually, we don't use it near as much because the technology is a lot different from it being 10 years ago. But we have had a policy in place when it comes to Flock or LPRs, advanced license plate readers that we had that were mobile on our cars. So they had four detectors on the top of a squad car, and you would drive around anywhere the public could be, and it would take pictures of those license plates and run those plates, meaning not who it belonged to, but if it was involved in any type of crime, specifically felony, any violent crimes first and foremost. And then you'll see in a couple slides later, you'll see what the breakdowns are that we've advanced to with our flock LPRs, which are stationary. They're stationary cameras. They snap photos of license plates. These are only used as possible leads. But you'll see again in a couple slides here that what those possible leads have amounted to in terms of what we've been able to capture from that snapshot and solve cases because of those vehicles being entered into our flock system. So we've had those for just a little bit over a year now. I think we started in August of last year. There were some trial periods that were involved with that. It's not just us, it's Mishawaka, it's St. Joe County, it's Pokagon, Niles now, Benton Harbor, Elkhart, and so everywhere in the surrounding area, and most cities now are either getting it or have it already, and we share this, I can tell you, all the way to California and all the way down to Texas that I just looked at, that we received, even Florida, we received notifications of others wanting to share their camera, whatever they've taken pictures of, with us. So if they've entered something, a homicide suspect, that we would know that in our system as well and would pick that up. And that was just attempted a brief overview. So if you look, you can read them if you have questions afterwards to ask about them. I think one of the notables in there, these are all felony situations, undoubtedly, but there's another category, and those are not counting things we've done for other agencies. And as I said before, and it's worked, I don't have the exact number, but I will tell you I have two detectives sitting in back right now that can confirm this, and a detective chief to my far left, that we have used these in several cases to confirm alibis, where somebody's accused of something and said, hey, it wasn't me, I was at Ironwood and something. We were able to confirm that through Flock, that they were telling the truth, and whoever told us that they were involved that was not true. So we have utilized that not just to apprehend people, but in order to not apprehend people, to prove what they've been saying all along was in fact true, and then we take our investigation a little different course from there. I think, unless Mayor, you want to back clean up on anything here, I know that if you have anything here, Ashley has been beyond helpful when it comes to media, especially. She gets summoned day and night, not just from us, but from media. Done a phenomenal job with that. So I'm just going to throw yet another one towards her on your behalf. Do you have any further questions or follow-up or anything that you may need, please contact Ashley. And then I think our last slide is our upcoming community engagement events. Cops and Goblins, I don't know how many golden tickets we have left, but I'm doubting.
Running dry.
I was going to say we're probably running, and we had 5,000 or 6,000, I think, originally, but we can still fit people in. So if you have families and kids that need to get out, safe environment, and it doesn't matter what the weather is, it'll still be undercover. So we'll be able to do that, and it's really a great time. We average between 5,000 and 7,000 typically at these events, so we don't see it being any different this year. We'd love to have that at least equal, if not greater, turnout. We'll also be doing some Halloween events at the schools. I know Riley, Monroe, Southeast, Little League, and Harrison School for sure have confirmed events that they're having that we will be attending as well. So when we ask for candy donation, it's not just for our event that we have at the Four Winds Field. It's for all these other events that we do as well on behalf and for our kids in our community.
Thank you, Chief. And you know, if you recall at the previous safety updates, and at least in the first half of the year, the number of shooting victims was actually lower year to date from the previous year, and we had questions about what the state law with permitting or permitless carry might have that went into effect in July. So this is the first picture of a permitless carry environment that we have, and you see it's mixed. We don't, the incidents are down, but the shooting victims are up. And then because we're up by slightly from last year in terms of shooting victims year to date, that this quarter was even more because we were down year to date previous to that. So, we'll continue to be active and make sure that we're taking the steps necessary now that we no longer have that tool in our toolbox to prevent gun violence. But we still see, obviously, bringing on more officers. We know that's something that's proven in different studies to have impacts on crime. And so being back up to full staffing levels next year, we're grateful to be in this position. Also, we talked previously about how the investigations team, especially taking over for Metro Homicide, how good of a job they were doing, and they continue to do a great job. And we're presenting the data in a little more, early on we kind of focused in on every piece, like where do we have suspects identified and all that. So this is just looking at, you see how we're classifying it now, and the clearance rate is 77%. But if you start looking into how old are the cases that are still open, how many cases are we without leave, that number, if you want to go there, then we're getting back up into, I don't want to say almost certainty, but it's getting to the place, and I think it's important that if you commit a homicide in South Bend, it is almost certain we are going to get you at some point, and oftentimes very quickly. And that's important deterrence, so folks know this is not a place to be, to be active, to go around shooting, because if, God forbid, you kill somebody, our team is on it, and that's gonna, that's gonna lead to consequences for you, and so that's important. That's an important piece of what we do, and why it's, I'm so grateful that the team has done such a great job taking this on. First, as a new endeavor for them, but also, we've been understaffed. So even in an understaffed environment, we've been able to accomplish this. Then now, as reinforcements are on the way, we hope to continue this streak into the future. And and so that's the message we need to continue sharing, is that if you try to take justice into your own hands and you end up killing somebody, you're going to end up facing justice by the law. And then we've talked a lot about recruitment in talks of the tentative wage agreement with the FOP, and obviously we believe the wage agreement will only further enhance our ability to retain and attract talent. So with that, we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Speaking on the shooting statistics, if I'm reading that correctly, it seems like there are fewer shooting incidents but more victims, which would seem to lead to the realization that when there is a shooting, it appears it's potentially larger in scale, or there's some reason that's causing there to be more victims per shooting incident. And could you maybe speak a little bit on that and why you feel that might be the case?
Yeah, so at least two of the incidents that we've had involved two victims, two of our homicides, one in Laurel Woods, one on Johnson. Those were two victims each in those, so that's why there's that gap in there. So it's one incident, but two incidents, but four people. So that's why the higher rate is. One of the things I did want to kind of echo what the mayor was saying, and absolutely spot on when it comes, help is on the way. I could tell you one of the homicide cases that we had recently, our detectives did, correct me if I'm wrong, Kayla or Jason, 24 or 27 search warrants in one case, just one case.
Well over 40.
Pardon?
I think it was well over 40.
Oh, okay, so well over 40 in one case. Regardless, that even exacerbates my point. People know something and need to say something. And they say, well, you're right, it is our job to investigate. But to get 27 or 40 search warrants for one incident should not be happening. If we had people to come forward, we would, number one, solve these a lot sooner, and it'd be a lot less physical and psychological toll on our officers and our community if we're able to get these resolved faster and not have to go through 27 to 40 search warrants on any specific case. Another thing that the mayor had pointed out and Mark just asked, with the shooting victims versus the incidents, you probably noticed that the gun recovery that we take in firearms is less than it was at this time last year. And that's number one, because of less incidents, so the opportunities from those incidents to get those is first and foremost. Secondly, we don't know for sure. There's no analytics can say who should have, could have that firearm in order to take them. Some are found properties that somebody tossed, maybe running away, and we're still in the process of vetting if that was involved in something, whether it was a shots fired at a groundhog in the backyard or at a person. So there's a lot of variables involved to determine what that gap may be. But you've seen we're not just from our hiring process, but some other things are pretty much pre-pandemic levels right now. That's what I've noticed, at least from my perspective. Anyway, I don't know if they've seen something different, but it feels that way, certainly.
On recruiting, Chief Crittenden was mentioning how a lot of that's due to the prospect days. So are the officers who were, or the recruits who were brought in for those days, are they now going into, are they currently in the academy? Or are they going to be in the academy that you're hosting in October? Or are they still like a little bit away and they'll be going next year?
Some from our past academy are currently in our FTO process as we speak today. And then a lot that we've had probably since August will be attending our own academy here beginning October 31st.
Remind us what FTO is again.
Field training off.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I think maybe more for the mayor, you mentioned at the very start the city's still seeking feedback regarding the policies. I guess some of us were at that meeting, and so we kind of know what some of the sentiments were there. Other than what was said at the meeting, has there been anything that's come up online or in conversations that wasn't mentioned at the meeting, or generally what's the feedback that you in the city have been getting on those policies?
Yeah, we haven't, I haven't fully reviewed and I don't know if Chief has either, because we're still hoping to get more, but I do not believe there's anything that's come in online that is substantially different than what we heard at the public meeting. I mean, those are the issues we anticipated going into this, and that's, confirmed, the public meeting confirmed about the issues that the community just, wants us to look at and be concerned about and make sure we do what we can to prevent those types of issues, new issues from arising. So I don't believe there's any new issues out there, and I think you've covered it now a couple times, and I believe you've done a good, fair job of covering the various concerns and issues to these new technologies.
A little bit related to that, I believe if I remember correctly from the meeting, you are in the process of partnering with, or identifying and reaching out to businesses to set up the kind of pilot program for the some of the cameras. Would you be able to remind me whether that pilot program the cameras will be paid for by the businesses or by the city, and then generally where that specific part of the larger picture stands?
Sure. Early on, we're trying to get do as much as we can to get businesses on board, but some businesses already have cameras that would be suitable, so we wouldn't have to pay for the cameras in those systems. What we would have to pay for is the component that allows their cameras to talk to our system. And so it's I don't know what we call it, I think exactly. A core, they call it a core device. So we would cover the cost of that so that they would be able to connect to our system and set how they would like to share their video. So a lot of businesses already have cameras, but then there are some that don't, that we think are important, that we would look to incentivize them to install the right cameras and as well as connect to our system. So that's the early pilot, and we hope to have an announcement here in the coming weeks when the pilot goes live.
I have a question for Chief Critt. Sorry I was late. Thought the press conference was at the CCB, but regardless, could you re-explain the on-site police academy and just the inherent advantages of it and how long that lasts?
So obviously, it's our own police academy that we're hosting. We will have 17 of our own police recruits going through that academy. It'll last it's extended one more week, so 17 weeks due to the number of holidays that we have towards the end of the year. So it's going to be 17 weeks. And the advantage is having our recruits remaining at home, where they can remain with family instead of traveling back and forth. They can spend more time at home with their families.
And do they start at Aaliyah or the other one and then come here, or do they
No,
start?
the academy will start here October 31st and will remain here for the 17-week duration.
And that's how long an academy typically lasts?
Normally it's 16 weeks, but like I said, it's one more week just because of the holidays that we have towards the end of the year.
And
We have
would
extended one
any
more.
of the recruits ever still go off to the other academies?
Yes, yeah. Currently, we still have some. Currently we have 9 at the NILEA Academy, and we have 2 at the ILEA Academy currently right now.
And even with this one, so there's state mandate certifications they have to, so firearms qualification, emergency vehicle operations, those would all be testable categories that they would have to travel downstate to do. No different than they would do if they were down there. Just we don't do that here. We do it down there with their instructors to score them.
And you guys are expected to be full staff at some point next year?
Yes, that's
That's
the
objective,
track
but-
we're on, yeah. You don't want to count the things before they happen, but yeah, that's what our expectation is. We'll be fully staffed by the end of next year.
And is that number 240?
In the budget, it's 240. I mean, we've talked about this in previous, people come and go throughout the year. There are retirements, people move with their family to another cities, just like in any other employment situation. So, it's always fluctuating. So, it's hard to say, what does it mean to be fully staffed? But the idea is that we have 240 budgeted. We didn't, from a policy perspective, reduce the number of officers we were looking to have, but we were being pragmatic the last year or two because we were so short, and it was hard to see how we would fill that gap in the coming year. So we reduced the number of officers budgeted, not because that's what we were hoping to be at, but because just the reality of where we were. So we increased it back up to 240 going into 2023 budget. But these are conversations, once we get to that, these are the conversations of where, are there other things we want to be doing? Are there other opportunities we could take advantage of if we have more folks who want to sign up to be an officer? And so, we don't want to say 240 or, that is not the number itself. We just know we expect to be at that level or maybe even above by the end of next year. And that to us would mean full staffing levels according to the latest reorganization of the police department in 2016 or 2017. 2017. So, that's where we. So that's what we talk about when we talk about full staffing levels.
Yes, there's a whole slide dedicated to police officer diversity. Someone just talked about how important that is. Obviously, all the trends are up, so why it's important to the department and why it was something to note on today.
Well, obviously, I mean, we want our department to reflect our community, and that's the reason why we like to see that. We like to see that trend going up because obviously, as I stated earlier, we want to be a reflection of a community that we serve, and that will just help us build relationships within certain parts of the community as well.
And I do want to go back to the conversation about the academies, and this is another issue where our department has stepped up because there was during the pandemic the number of slots statewide was reduced, and that was the first time that we did an academy here because we knew we needed officers. If there are no slots to send, even if we have recruits, there are no slots to get them trained. That puts us back quite a ways, and so you notice that departments across the state also have shortages, have suffered some shortages of officers. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't have spots for the officers, you've constricted that pool of trained officers. So being able to, and we're grateful to the state, allowing us to do an academy here increases that pool total for the state. But it's also, why can't we do, why can't these other academies expand? Partly is you also have to have officers that are trained to come train the recruits. And so that's a challenge too. So as departments become shorthanded, they become less likely to be willing to offer up their officers to be training officers at these academies. And so in this case, by taking on an academy, we're really coming in and saying, we're going to figure out how to get officers trained. And we're not just training officers that are coming. For the state to allow us to do this, we're open, and we've taken officers from the region and maybe even beyond to make sure. So this is, I just want to give kudos to the team for stepping up. I mean, I know it's a lot of work, but it's critical, and this is going to be one piece of the solution to how we expect to be fully staffed by the end of next year.
Any other questions?
Thank you.